Having a great time in ETH Denver. Hope all of you are as well. I will be talking to you about Hedera Consensus Service, which I believe has an untapped potential to be utilized by many networks to fill gaps in which their networks fail or have issues with, would be a way to phrase it. A little bit about me. So my name is Ty Smith, recently doxed. Previously, before I was doxed, if you know me in the crypto space or on crypto Twitter, I am Patches. A lot of people in spaces know me as the guy who always pokes holes in ordinals, but I love ordinals. So that is a little bit of a background, but I've been building on Hedera for about 3 years. Build a lot of different technology, open source, mass minting NFT tools, launch pads, DeFi, some farming. And then 3-4 months ago, I was hired by Hedera, or Swirlds Labs, which is the development arm of Hedera. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on TMCC, Patches on Twitter and Telegram. So I'm going to breeze a little bit over the intro of Hedera since Nana just did an amazing job of explaining the EVM equivalency and what a hash graph is. But the main points are it's next-gen consensus. So with the hash graph algorithm, consensus becomes a lot more simpler, less energy usage. So it's a lot more efficient, a lot faster, a lot more scalable. It's secure, so with the asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, again, Nana did a great job, but you just get more security when you do things asynchronous inside of the Gossip algorithm. Economical, so it's definitely low cost, it uses less energy, and then all of the gas fees are pegged to USD, which is really, really helpful when you have issues on your chain to maybe process some data on a bridge, but it costs a lot to write that data to the chain, or it costs a lot of time. This is always pegged to USD, so you can predict how much it's going to cost to write the messages to the network. And it's cross-chain ready, so it's designed for interoperability across chain. I think, again, Nana, there's a great lead-in, showed exactly how our EVM equivalency has come about and how far we are. And then I will talk a little bit about how I created the standard HCS20 and why I created it. So HCS20 is built on Hedera's consensus service. So with the hash graph, we have a service that specifically is kind of like a sequencer that you can just call. It has an NPM package for the SDK. There's a bunch of different SDKs you can integrate with. And it gives you a very easy way of submitting data, metadata, to a service that will get a fair ordered, no MEV, no sandwich attack possible. Will give you a fair ordered consensus timestamp down to the nanosecond in 2 to 5 seconds. And so that ability to be utilized by other networks, I think, is, again, an untapped thing that can really bring a lot of usability when you need things like a bridge. The real-time consensus, again, when you need information very quickly inside of whatever application you're building on whatever network, would give you a higher throughput, a better user experience, especially as we try to onboard Web 2 people into Web 3. If we're not matching mobile user experience in 3 seconds of a loading screen, any second that it goes up, you lose your audience by 30%. Mobile users are extremely fickle, and just saying that there's blockchain behind it is not going to change the way they interact with the internet. And so you need to somehow be able to provide a very great user experience, and this is one method in which you can perform, again, actions that your network might have some trouble doing fast or cheap or quickly, that you need to have a good user experience for them to get something like a DAO vote, or something where they want to see that their vote is on mainnet and immutable before they leave the site. Again, yep, it's auditable, it's traceable, public node, or it's a public network, so you can always see the transactions, it's transparent. It's cost effective, so it's a fractional. It's 1/100th of a penny every time you submit a message onto HCS, pegged to USD. So it's a very, very scalable solution. Again, with 10,000 TPS, you can throw a lot of data at it. It will fair order all of that data, and then you can just read that sequencer and go, okay, I know when all of these happened. They're all fair ordered. There's no MEV. It was done by the Hashgraph consensus algorithm, and I can now use that data that's fair ordered for my application or my network. So in order to contextualize this technology, which is really ethereal, it's like, okay, you can just put any data on this thing and it'll order it. I created a standard called HCS20, and if you're in the ordinal space, I'm sure you've heard of BRC20. It's what bricked Bitcoin for a couple of days in its height, and it was the idea of how do you unlock fungible tokens on top of Bitcoin? It was crazy. Someone tweeted out a Gitbook, Domo, and within a month, it was a $2 billion asset market, which to me is like the key of decentralization. But the problem was there's a lot of moving parts inside of ordinals to try to dictate a fungible token. Because what they're doing is they're minting an NFT on a fungible asset that dictates an amount of a fungible asset on top of it that then is exchanged as an NFT. And if that was confusing, that's my point. It is extremely difficult to explain BRC20. It does work, and there's tons of markets, DEXs being built. But what we did is we just showed the power of what this service can do. So with HCS20, we use the exact same protocols with P and OP. So P is protocol, OP is operation. So it was the same exact JSON format of what Domo tweeted. But we utilized it on our consensus service, which is all it is a fair ordered event, linear event structure. And so that's exactly what you would want to do if you want to read a bunch of JSON on a network and dictate state after you read all the messages. And then when two people submit a swap at the same time, we'll get fair ordered by a hash graph. And then you can just look at the sequence and go, okay, well, that's the one that got it, and the other one first is first, so the second one is invalid. And it's a lot easier to do that instead of again, clearing block times on Bitcoin with 7 transactions per second. It's very difficult to do these high throughput mechanics. So HCS20, you utilize the Hedera consensus service, and the way it works is you create a topic ID. And a topic ID is just an entity identifier on the hash graph that is where all of your messages will show. So you have a topic ID, and then you submit 3 messages. You'll have 3 sequence numbers, or serial numbers, sequence numbers. I was right the first time. So when you create that topic ID, there is an added power where you can add a submit key. If you don't add a submit key, literally anyone on the planet can just pull up an SDK, point to that topic identifier, and submit data. There's a lot of applications that lead to, you would want to do that, like BRC20 or HCS20 as it was in this implementation, because you don't want to restrict people from being able to submit to the public ledger, but you want to make sure that public ledger is fair ordered. You can also add a submit key. And when you add a submit key, that dictates only the people who have that key can put any data onto that topic, but it is still publicly available for people to see. So we utilize that, or I utilized that in a personal project where we wanted to reward people with points. But we didn't want to create a fungible token because we live in America. And Gary Gensler doesn't really decide that yet, and the SEC doesn't really know. And we wanted to be as risk intolerant as possible. We want to be as safe as possible. So instead of issuing a fungible token and sending them out as an airdrop, we issued points. And the points can only be moved and be assigned through someone who writes it. And so we wrote an airdrop to all of our holders of an NFT project. And they all had it, and they could see the balance if you just went through the sequence number. But no one can move it without us. So we can build proprietary applications where we continually move our submit key, and we have full control over the movement of these assets. And again, if you don't add a submit key, then it's free reign. And anyone can do anything, anyone can submit any data, and that's sort of what you have on the public ledger of Ordinals in BRC20. With the private topic ID, there's also very unique things that are unlocked, such as inventory tracking. After I released this standard on Hedera, I really thought of it as just points, as a way to get around a fungible token security, a way to have more control over the movement of an asset that dictates value. And we saw that a hot sauce company that is building on Hedera called Rooster Cartel started to use it to track its inventory. So it would deploy inventory, it would mint it to a distributor, and then you can see, if you just read it, all of the inventory, where it went and where it was used. And so what HCS20 became, though it was a point standard, it's just a way to track anything, event by event, in a very very succinct way that allows you to understand what has happened at what time before each event in fair order. So again, the advantages over the traditional systems, like if you wanted to bridge an asset from Ethereum to Bitcoin, you take the asset and you get the person to sign a transaction that has data on Ethereum. You get the asset on Ordinals or Bitcoin and make them sign a transaction. You wait for them to clear. You can then check that data, and then you can vault one and mint another asset on the other side, or whatever the mechanics are of your bridge. But you're restricted by the TPS of whatever you're bridging, whatever networks you're bridging. I believe that HCS20 or just the Hedera consensus service is a great mechanism where you can have a user go and sign a transaction, check the public key, guarantee that that was actually signed by that user, make sure your open source code, and then immediately write to Hedera consensus service whatever information you need to be able to bridge that asset. So you would have 3-second finality. It would be 1/100th of a penny every time you wrote 1 kilobit to the network, And then you'd be able to lower the gas price, make the user experience so much better for that bridge, and even put a fee on top of it, where you can make more money by making a better user experience because you eat the gas of 1/100th of a penny, but then you charge just a little bit more for your experience, which is also 80% decrease in the user's cost that they're already paying in the gas of their native chain. So there's a lot of ways that you can utilize this for scaling L1s or scaling L2s. And again, I believe this to be the way that Hedera can make all networks better. Our purpose is not to be the best network. It is to give functionality that is needed to fill some gaps that other networks have in the trilemma problem that they've decided to bring a user experience that can onboard the next generation of users from Web 2 to Web 3. Another interesting way that HCS is being used is to track carbon credits. So Dovu and The Guardian is Dovu is a company, and The Guardian is an open source mechanism of how to track carbon credits. So a country has a certification that this is a carbon credit that goes on chain. You follow that through where it's moved, who buys it, and then when it's used, and then it cannot be used again. It's all on chain. And they chose to use Hedera because it is the most green. We just don't use energy. So we don't buy carbon credits to offset. We use the least amount of energy. And again, Nana had a great graph that showed how little of energy we use. And then you are able to track and not greenwash, not double spend a carbon credit. So this, I think, is one a really cool way on how RWAs can be utilized through the Hedera Consensus Service to empower what we want, which is carbon credits shouldn't be double used. That's not the point. It's the antithesis of the point. And so if we can start using crypto and blockchain to show what is the value of this technology and remove the horrible phrase of crypto is just a solution finding a problem, which I think is the worst idea ever, and show contextually how we're solving problems and how we're giving benefit to regular end users. I already went over Euster Cartel. And yeah, so the future possibilities of HCS20 are, I have no idea. When I launched this standard, I really was just like, oh, well, you can assign points to people. And then it just kind of exploded in all directions. And it really is just a tracking of movement of things. Anything can use it. If you can use it for bridging, you can use it for DeFi, you can use it for ordinals. And I'm very excited to continue to build on it and to see what the community does with this new standard of HCS20. I don't know if we ask questions in this format, but if there are questions, I can answer any. And if there's not, then I will be done. Thank you so much.